the mic is hot. Let's break this down. Just just put the coffee down for a second. Seriously, you need to really look at me right now. I lean across the table, voice drops to a near whisper. I haven't slept in 3 days. I've been staring at these screens, at these terminal readouts that aren't supposed to be public yet, and I feel like I'm the only one in a burning movie theater who smells the smoke while everyone else is still laughing at the screen. You know what they're telling you. You open your phone, you check the news apps, and what do you see? Soft landing, market correction, transitory pain. They keep using that word, resilient. They tell you that the American consumer is resilient. They tell you that the dip we saw back in April, that so-called Liberation Day shock when the first round of tariffs hit, was just a blip. They're looking you dead in the eye, smiling that polished TV smile, and telling you it's just a little turbulence. It's not turbulence. The plane is already in a nosedive, and they've just shut the blinds so you don't see the ground coming. I found something, a new data set. It's circulating on the back channels, the stuff the big banks like ABN AMRO or Goldman trade on before they water it down for their retail newsletters. And it confirms exactly what I was afraid of. The soft landing isn't just a mirage, it's a fabrication, a mathematical lie. We aren't looking at a correction in 2026. We're looking at a full-blown catastrophic contraction, a recession. And not the will bounce back in a quarter kind. The killer detail, that's what the analysts are calling it in private Slack channels, is pinpointing Q1 2026 as the trough. That's mere weeks away. Weeks! Rubs temples, eyes closed tight. Here is the part that makes me want to scream. You know why everyone felt okay this year? You know why 2025 felt weirdly fine despite the chaos in the headlines? It was a sugar high. That's all it was. Businesses knew the 10% universal tariff was coming. They're not stupid. They front-loaded everything. They stuffed their warehouses to the ceiling with inventory bought at the old prices to beat the clock. That massive spending spree created this artificial sense of activity, this party that Wall Street cheered for. But the party is over. The inventory is gone, depleted. Now, when these companies go to restock in January, they aren't buying at the old rate. They are eating the full 10% universal levy, plus all the retaliatory duties from China, India, Mexico, and they cannot absorb it. They just can't. The margins aren't there. So, guess who pays? You pay. I pay. The price of everything is about to jump right at the exact moment corporate hiring freezes turn into corporate layoffs. Taps finger hard on the table. And the White House? Trump is doubling down. He's on Truth Social right now, literally right now, fighting a war with the federal courts, saying that if they block his emergency tariff powers, it's going to be 1929 all over again. He's framing the tariffs as the load-bearing wall of the entire economy. He's threatening Vietnam. He's going after Indian rice exports. He's torching the IMF warnings as globalist fear-mongering. But the math doesn't care about the politics. The math says there is a 50% probability of a hard landing recession starting in January. Wall Street is quietly pricing it in while telling you to buy the dip. I know. It sounds like doom scrolling, but I need you to listen because there is a pattern here that connects the toy aisle at your local Target to a courtroom in DC and a rice paddy in India. It's all one giant terrifying machine, and the gears are about to grind to a halt. Stay with me, because what I'm about to explain about why they are doing this, it's going to make you look at your bank account very differently. You have to go back to understand this. You have to go back way before the election, before the rallies, before any of it. You have to go back to a dusty office in Washington around 2017 where guys like Robert Lighthizer were sketching this out on legal pads. This isn't a Trump whim. That's the mistake everyone makes. They think this is a tweet. It's not a tweet. It's a theology. For years, these guys have been obsessed with one word, reciprocity. They look at the global map and they don't see trade, they see theft. They see a car going from Germany to the US with a 2.5% tariff and a car going from the US to Europe with a 10% tariff, and they don't see economic complexity. They see an insult. They see theft. Lighthizer used to talk about the $20 trillion wealth transfer, this idea that America has been strip-mined by the rest of the world. So, when they wrote the Fair and Reciprocal Tariff Act, and when they dusted off the IEEPA, the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, they weren't looking for leverage, they were looking for revenge. They found a cheat code in the system that lets the president declare a national emergency and just rewrite the tax code on imports. No Congress, no vote, just a signature. Now I know what the TV anchors are saying. I can hear them in my head right now. Oh, it's just a negotiating tactic. He's the art of the deal guy. He's going to threaten the 10% universal tariff, get a few concessions from China and Mexico, and then pivot back to business as usual. No, he is not pivoting. That is the villain in the story. Not a person, but a delusion. The delusion that this is a game of poker. It's not poker. It's demolition. Look at what he's doing right now. He isn't sitting down with the Chinese premier or the president of Mexico to cut a deal. He's on Truth Social threatening to nuke the economy if the federal courts try to stop him. He's calling the judges traitors to American wealth. He's targeting Indian rice exports because he thinks their tariffs on our motorcycles are unfair. Do you know how much rice we export to India? Almost none. But he's going to tax their rice, which means the price of a bag of basmati at your local Kroger is about to double. He is doubling down. He believes, truly, deeply believes, that tariffs are a magic money machine. He thinks he's charging China for the privilege of selling to us. But you know the truth. You know who pays the tariff. The importer pays. The guy who owns the warehouse in New Jersey pays. And then he charges you. And here is where the sugar high comes in. This is the part that explains why your 2025 didn't feel like a disaster and why your 2026 is going to feel like a car crash. Imagine you own a store. You sell, electronics, toasters, headphones, whatever. You knew in April 2025 that Trump was serious. You saw the Liberation Day shock. You aren't stupid. So what did you do? You called your factory in Shenzhen or Vietnam or Mexico, and you said, ship everything, now. Fill the containers. I want every toaster you can make before the tariffs hit. We call that front-loading. That's why the GDP numbers looked okay in Q3 2025. That's why the ports were busy. That's why Wall Street cheered. It looked like growth, but it wasn't growth. It was panic buying. And now? Drops your hands to the table. The warehouse is empty. Those holiday discounts you just saw in December, that wasn't generosity. That was retailers clearing out the last of the pre-tariff stock. They were desperate to get cash in the door before the new reality hit. But come January 15th, when they have to order the new batch of headphones, they can't front-load anymore. The wall is up. The 10% universal tariff is live. The retaliatory tariffs from Europe and Asia are live. The price of the chip inside the headphone just went up 25%. The price of the plastic casing went up 10%. The shipping insurance went up because global trade is in chaos. So that $50 pair of headphones isn't $55, it's $85. And it's not just headphones. It's the toy aisle. It's the parts for your car. It's the fertilizer the farmers need, which, by the way, is why Trump is promising aid to farmers again. He breaks their legs with a trade war, then offers them a crutch paid for by, checks notes, taxing you on the crutch. And the scariest part? The safety valve is gone. Usually, when things get this bad, the adults in the room step in. The IMF, International Monetary Fund, or the WTO issue a warning, and the president listens. Well, the IMF issued the warning. They said this week, literally this week, that if these reciprocal measures continue, we are looking at a global trade rollback not seen since the Great Depression, since the 1930s. And Trump's response? Globalist fear-mongering. He dismissed it. He said the tariffs are bringing in trillions. There are no trillions. The deficit is exploding because tax receipts are down. The party is ending and the bill is sitting on the table and the waiter is looking at you. Pauses, looks up, makes direct eye contact. But there's a mechanism at play here that's even darker than just prices going up. It's about how the economy actually breaks when you try to force it to do something it physically can't do. Let me explain this with a bar fight, because that's essentially what we're walking into, a bar fight with the lights off. So picture this. Imagine you were at a bar, a really nice, crowded dive bar. It's 11 p.m. on a Saturday. This is the global economy in 2025. The owner of the bar, let's call him the administration, gets on the microphone and makes an announcement. He says, listen up, starting at midnight, exactly at midnight, the price of every single drink is going to triple. A beer is going to be $30, a shot is going to be $50, and if you order anything imported, tequila, scotch, fancy vodka, that's going to be $100 a glass. I'm doing this to teach the distributors a lesson. Now, what happens in that bar between 11:05 p.m. and 11:59 p.m.? Chaos. Absolute, beautiful chaos. Everyone in that room rushes the bar. They aren't thirsty right that second, but they know what's coming. So they order 5 rounds at once. They max out their credit cards. They pile the table high with bottles. The bartenders are sweating, the cash register is ringing like crazy, and the owner is standing there grinning, looking at the receipts, saying, see, I told you, my policy is working. Look at this revenue. The economy is booming. That was 2025. That was the sugar high. That was the resilient consumer the news kept talking about. It wasn't organic growth. It was a panic-induced bender. We pulled forward a year's worth of spending into 6 months to beat the clock. But now, lowers her voice and leans in closer, now it's 12:01 a.m. The clock struck midnight. The tariffs are live. The bar is silent. Everyone is sitting there, staring at a table full of warm, half-finished beer they bought an hour ago. They have no money left because they spent it all during the rush. And even if they did want another drink, they look at the menu, see the $30 price tag for a Bud Light, and they say, no way. So the ordering stops. Dead stop. The bartenders, the workers, are standing there with nothing to do. The owner starts panicking. He thought the high prices would make him rich, but nobody's buying. So what does he do? Does he lower the prices? No. He doubles down. He starts yelling at the patrons, telling them they are unpatriotic for not buying the $100 scotch. He starts firing the bartenders because there's no revenue coming in. And then, and this is the reciprocal part, the guy who delivers the tequila kicks the door open and starts smashing the windows. That's the retaliation. That's India and China hitting back. Does that make sense? The soft landing they promised is just the silence in the bar at 12:01 a.m. It feels calm for a second, but it's the calm before the brawl starts. The mechanism of how this breaks the supply chain is actually boring, which is why no one covers it. It's not about grand strategy, it's about cash flow. It's about a thing called a letter of credit. See, when a company like Walmart or Ford orders parts from overseas, they don't usually pay cash up front. They use bank financing. They get a letter of credit that says, we will pay you in 90 days. But with these new 10% universal tariffs and the 25 to 50% targeted levies, the risk profile has exploded. The banks, who are the real canaries in the coal mine, are looking at these importers and saying, I don't know if you can actually sell these goods at these new prices. I don't know if you're going to be solvent in 90 days. So the banks are tightening the screws. They are denying the credit. This is the inventory trap. You have companies that need to restock now that the 2025 party supplies are gone. But to restock, they need cash. To get cash, they need to sell goods. But they can't sell goods because the tariffs force them to jack up prices and the consumer is tapped out. It's a liquidity freeze. The engine doesn't blow up, it seizes because there's no oil. Honestly, I almost feel bad for the CEOs. Almost, because they painted themselves into this corner. Think about the guy running a mid-sized manufacturing plant in Ohio. He voted for this. He wanted protection. But now he's realizing that protection means the specialized steel screws he needs to assemble his product, screws that are only made in one province in China, just went up 50% because of the tariff war. He can't switch to an American supplier because there is no American supplier for that specific screw yet. It would take 2 years to build the factory. He doesn't have 2 years. He has 2 months before he runs out of cash. He's sitting in his office right now looking at the Q1 2026 projections, and he knows he has to fire 20% of his staff to pay for the raw materials. He doesn't want to, but the math is the math. I know. It sounds like fiction. I wish it was. I sound like one of those guys on a street corner with a cardboard sign, right? The end is nigh. I get it. The sun is shining outside, the coffee shop is open, people are walking their dogs. It feels normal. But that's the danger. Economic collapses don't look like explosions. They look like a slow leak until suddenly the tire is flat on the highway doing 70 miles an hour. Here is the domino effect. This is the sequence you need to watch for in January and February. Domino 1, the order shock. We're already seeing this. Manufacturing orders in Asia for U.S. delivery just fell off a cliff. That's the signal that U.S. companies aren't restocking. Domino 2, the margin compression. In late January, earnings season starts. Companies will report Q4 2025 numbers. They might look okay because of the holiday rush, but look at the guidance. They are going to warn that margins are getting crushed by the tariffs. This is when the stock market wakes up and realizes the soft landing was a lie. Domino 3, the retaliation squeeze. This is the ugly one. India and Vietnam aren't just going to take the tariffs, they're going to target specific U.S. sectors that hurt politically. Agriculture, tech. They will stop buying U.S. soybeans. They will stop buying U.S. software licenses. Suddenly, American exporters, the people who were supposed to win this trade war, get hit. Domino 4, the Q1 contraction. By March 2026, the data comes out. GDP turns negative. The recession is official. But by then, the layoffs are already happening. It's a machine. Once you turn the key, and Trump turned the key when he signed those emergency orders, the gears grind forward. You can't just talk your way out of it. You can't truth social your way out of a liquidity crisis. And the worst part, the only tool they have left to fix it is the one thing they promised they wouldn't do. They'll have to print money. But we'll get to that. The point is, the bar is closed, the lights are coming on, and everyone is about to realize just how messy the room really is. So, what happens when the lights come on in that bar? You see the roaches, you see the broken glass, and you realize the doors are locked. The ugly truth regarding the next 6 to 12 months is not something you are going to hear on the evening news until it is far too late to prepare for it. They are going to keep pivoting the narrative. First, it was transitory. Then it was soft landing. By February or March 2026, when the Q1 data confirms the contraction, the narrative will shift to sabotage. Mark my words, the administration isn't going to say, oops, our tariff model was wrong. They're going to say, the corporations are price gouging you. They're going to say, the globalists are squeezing us to make the president look bad. And that is when it gets dangerous, because when a government refuses to admit an economic mistake, they usually try to outlaw the consequences of that mistake. We're likely heading into a period of stagflationary whiplash. Here's the forecast. Prices for essentials, food, energy, basic tech will stay high or go higher because of the tariffs. That 10% floor is baked in. You can't undo it overnight. But simultaneously, the economy will slow down. People will lose jobs. Overtime hours will vanish. So you have a recession, less money in your pocket, combined with inflation, higher prices on the shelf. It's the worst of both worlds. It's the 1970s, but with algorithms and high-speed trading. And the specific killer detail regarding the Trump doubles down strategy? Watch for capital controls or price controls. I know, it sounds impossible in America, but if the reciprocal tariffs cause a run on the dollar or a massive flight of capital, the emergency powers, i.e. EPA, allow the president to restrict money moving out of the country. Imagine trying to move your savings to a safer harbor and getting a transaction denied notification because it's unpatriotic. I know, it sounds absurd, right? A data import tax? But if they're taxing physical goods to protect American industry, why wouldn't they tax digital goods to protect American, thought? And the grocery store? That's where you feel it. The variety is gone. You don't see avocados from Mexico or grapes from Chile unless you are willing to pay $15 for them. You eat what is in season locally. That sounds nice and farm to table until it's February in Chicago and all you have is potatoes and canned corn. We are moving toward a Soviet-light consumer experience. You have money, but there's nothing good to buy. The things that are available are lower-quality domestic substitutes. American-made sounds great, but when you force it by cutting off competition, you get complacency. You get expensive, mediocre products because they're the only game in town. The society, the vibe on the street, it's tense. It's a scarcity mindset. You know how people get when there's a snowstorm coming and they fight over the last loaf of bread? Imagine that baseline anxiety, but all the time. People hoarding, people suspicious of their neighbors. How did he get that new car? Who does he know? It creates a bifurcated world. The haves, the people with political connections, the people who can get waivers for the tariffs, they live like it's 2019. The rest of us, we live in the repair economy. We don't buy new, we patch the old. We fix the dishwasher for the 5th time because a new one is 3 months' salary. Okay, enough doom. I'm telling you this not to scare you, but to wake you up. Because if you know the train is coming, you can get off the tracks. Here's the big brother advice. This isn't financial advice. I'm not telling you to buy Bitcoin or gold or whatever the grifters are selling this week. I'm talking about life advice. Stop being a consumer. Start being a producer. The system is designed to punish consumers right now. If your only skill is swiping a credit card, you are the prey. You need to learn how to do things. Can you fix a leak? Can you grow tomatoes? Can you mend clothes? I'm serious. The service economy is going to get expensive. If you have to pay someone $200 an hour to fix your toilet because there's a labor shortage and a parts shortage, you're going to go broke. Learn skills. Stockpile utility, not just stuff. Tighten the circle. In a high-trust society, you don't need to know your neighbors. In a low-trust, high-friction economy, your neighbor is your supply chain. You need to know who can do what on your street, who has the generator, who knows how to weld, who is a nurse. Build those bridges now before you need them. Community is the only hedge against chaos. Get healthy now. gestures to body. This sounds weird, but listen, the healthcare system is just another supply chain. Pharmaceuticals, medical devices, a lot of that stuff comes from China and India. If this trade war goes hot or even just lukewarm, shortages are coming. You cannot afford to be sick with a preventable lifestyle disease in 2026. Fix your teeth. Get the surgery you've been putting off. Get in shape. The most expensive thing you can own in a recession is a bad body. Ignore the noise. They are going to try to make you angry. The algorithm, the news, the politicians, they feed on your rage. They want you fighting about woke versus anti-woke or whatever the distraction of the day is, while they devalue your currency and dismantle your purchasing power. Don't take the bait. Starve them of your attention. Focus on your house, your family, your skills. The soft landing was a fairy tale. We are in for a turbulent flight. But you're smart. You're listening to this. You're looking at the data while everyone else is looking at the distraction. That gives you an edge. Don't panic. Panic is expensive. Just prepare. Get your house in order. Make the hard decisions now while you still have options. I have to go. I have another meeting with a source who says the Fed is about to hold an emergency closed-door session. I'll let you know what I find. Stay sharp, stay hidden. I'll see you in the comments.